I welcome all of you. Thank you. We're still celebrating our 110th anniversary, and so this is the year of the members, and so this party is for you. Okay. So I want to thank all the groups who sold and the boutique. This year we had 5 Alumni Coordinating Council groups, Women of Troy. We had the, I don't think Penelope and Carol are here with, I think they left, but they had the USC earrings. Then we had Town and Gown and our whole crew. And so we appreciate everyone who carried all those boxes and came and set up everything, and then we'll have to take it back. So please shop afterwards if you didn't shop beforehand. Now I'm going to, I know you're eating your salad, but I am going to ask you to please stand. We will have the presentation of the colors by the Navy ROTC Color Guard. We will have the Pledge of Allegiance, and I believe the National Anthem.
Left turn. March. Color guard. Halt.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Sarah Bowser. We're very grateful to have her today. She has her undergraduate degree from TCU.
Yep.
Okay, that's all right. And then her master's degree from USC and is currently working on her DMA. And please be seated, it's okay. And she, with minors in jazz, music education, and the music industry. So she is going to be very prepared. We thank her very much for that beautiful solo.
Thank you.
Thank you. And of course, thank you to Christine Ofeisch for arranging our beautiful music today. Thank you. Today's going to be a very uplifting day, and right now I would like for you to lift up your hearts. I placed a tribute card on each place. You know, the women that have run this organization for years, over 100 years, deserve our thanks, our gratitude, and our blessings. And when we lose someone, we always want to recognize what they have given to us. So we lost our president, Joanne George, and she served from 1988 to 1990. And if any of you know Joanne, she did it with pizzazz and plenty of style and hard work, I'm sure. So we salute her today, and please keep the card so you keep her close to your heart. Now, I'm glad that you have started your salads because we have such a busy program today. Please go ahead and enjoy them, but we are going to start part of our program. First, I'd like to welcome to the podium one of our Senior Vice President of Programs, Kathy Lingle.
And I would like to recognize Virginia Nave. She is my co-VP for programs, and she and I have worked on this program for a while. I think a few of you might have been wondering about the colors around the scarf around my neck, and I do know that some people get a little nervous around here when they see blue and gold. But I do assure you, the colors I wear have nothing to do with the school across town, nor do they have anything to do with the school up north. I wear this scarf to honor the United States Navy and all the men and women in all the branches of our armed services who are prepared to put themselves in harm's way to protect our freedoms and on this election day, our freedom to vote. Today, we celebrate the Reserve Officer Training Corps, or ROTC, at USC. USC actually boasts one of the oldest ROTC programs in the country, and Navy ROTC is poised to celebrate its 75th year on campus. So now, if you would please direct your attention to the screen.
Being an officer in the Army is something that, since I was a little kid, I just knew that it's something I always needed to do. When I got the Army ROTC scholarship and when I got into USC, it was just absolutely perfect. And I knew as soon as the packet came in the mail, that's where I was going to go.
The first time I walked onto campus, I fell in love. Everybody was so friendly. I immediately felt a part of the Trojan family. And I knew at that moment in time, I needed to spend the next 4 years of my life here.
Every day I wake up and I know that it's a privilege to be here. Without the NROTC scholarship, I would have never been able to come to a school like USC and receive such a great education.
When I look at the young students coming here, trying to find their way in life, I see people that are looking for a world-class education at an elite university, who want to serve their country and be great citizens. The investment that USC makes in these young people is important in every way to their development and the future of our nation.
My mom was an enlisted Marine and my dad was a corpsman. So both of them were enlisted, and it's a big deal for me to be going to college right now, to be taking the officer route, becoming an officer in the military.
Initially, it was a tough decision between the University of Southern California and the Air Force Academy, but in the end, I chose USC because it allows me to get the best of both worlds. I can have a military education and still attend a world-class university.
Cadets need to balance between academics, which are very, very difficult here at USC, and a cadet program.
It's not easy. It requires a lot of dedication, a lot of hard work. You have to have the will, the drive, and the motivation to make sure that you succeed.
I get up around 5:45, come to PT, get a good workout in, get to class, spend all day in class. I'm also on the sailing team, so I go to sailing practice after class, come home, do my homework, go to bed, and do it all over again the next day.
In addition to being part of the USC NROTC program, I'm also part of the USC lacrosse team, the USC ski team, and the USC triathlon team.
I was the president of my fraternity. I was on the ultimate frisbee team and the rugby team. There's so many things to do at USC that my only regret is that I can only go through it one time.
One of the important things about USC is the diversity of cultures that you see here. Cadets, when they graduate and become second lieutenants, are going to deploy to other countries. And so they'll be able to use that experience that they have at USC in order to be better prepared to perform their missions in other countries.
When a cadet first comes to the detachment, what we're looking at is raw material. What we're looking to do is build an officer, someone that would be an example for society, someone that would be a leader.
Ready, cut, pause, left, 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 right.
One of my responsibilities is to teach leadership and ethics, and we talk about all of the different philosophies of leadership that are out there. But I tell them the real test for leadership and ethics is going to happen when they're charged with leading young people in the Navy and Marine Corps.
We come down to Camp Pendleton to do practical application into some of the skills that we teach in the classroom. So if we talk about leadership, if we talk about the principles of land navigation, well, we can't do those things in the classroom. All these things are physical manifestations of the classroom instruction that they receive at USC.
Ready, go! Go! Again. There you go, Smith. There you go, Smith. Yeah, get to the top. Let me hear it, Smith.
Smith, USC! The skills that we learn out here are skills that we'll carry on for the rest of our life. In our careers and decision making and being part of a family. Anytime some type of challenging decision process comes along, we're able to face it because we've really honed that mental toughness that comes into play.
Come on, let's go.
I will make the transition from college student into officer in the United States Army. An incredibly daunting task, but I know that from my ROTC experience and the training I've gotten the last 4 years, I'm absolutely prepared and ready for anything that the Army has to throw at me.
This has been the best job I've ever had in the Air Force. And not only because of the energy and the spirit I get from working with the cadets, but also from the support from the Trojan family.
Through thick and thin, USC has supported ROTC, and so we realize how lucky we are to be on the USC campus.
The ROTC program here at USC was started in 1940. It's one of the oldest in the country, and it has an incredible legacy. Great leaders have come out of here, and great leaders will continue to be made here at USC.
Everyone who graduates from the program wears that a little bit on their chest with pride, along with all the other ribbons. The USC ROTC alumni are making a difference right now.
When I graduate USC and commission in the Navy, I hope to be a submariner.
I'd love to go into the fields of maybe intelligence or logistics.
My dream is to become a pilot for the United States Air Force.
I want to serve and lead Marines. Beyond that, doesn't matter. Whatever they need me to do, that's what I want to do.
I love USC. I love being a Trojan midshipman. I feel so honored to be a part of such an amazing community of people. It's been a dream come true.
That wonderful video is produced by the Soul Price School. It is now my pleasure to welcome to the podium Executive Officer Midshipman First Class Marina Harrell.
Good afternoon. As she said, my name is Marina Harrell. I'm a senior right now at USC, and I am a Marine Option Midshipman in Naval ROTC. First of all, I'd like to thank Ms. Single for inviting me to this event and for inviting me to speak. I only have a couple minutes, but she asked me to talk briefly about my experiences in ROTC, why I joined ROTC, and what I plan on doing with it in the future. So to start off, I don't have any family in the military. That's always the first question I get asked when they ask why I joined. But my interest in the military really began when I was a lot younger. I always thought the lifestyle was appealing. I liked the discipline. I liked the structure. And more importantly, I liked the idea of becoming part of something that was greater than myself. It wasn't until high school where I started really seriously considering my options. I started talking to different people in the military. And in particular, I started talking to my recruiter, Staff Sergeant Urbina. And he had a big influence on my life, and he's a lot of the reason why I'm here. One of the things he always told me when I became an officer, that whatever I did in the military, I needed to do it for my Marines. And no matter what, when I was leading, if I became a platoon commander, the main thing I needed to focus on was just do it for my Marines. And something about that really stuck with me. I really like the community and being in an environment where you really need to have trust and respect of your peers. You can't do it without them. So that's what got me interested in ROTC, and he's the one that showed me all about the scholarship, and that's how I'm here. Since I've been at USC, ROTC has been a major component of my college experience. Every day we do stuff as midshipmen. In ROTC, we have greater responsibilities than the average college student. But the reason that is to help prepare us for when we enter the fleet and all the responsibilities we're going to have then. I've had amazing opportunities and experiences in ROTC. For example, 2 years ago, the unit sent me to the Naval Academy for a leadership conference, and I had the opportunity to meet hundreds of midshipmen from across the country, and we got to listen to panels and speakers of some of the most notable speakers and leaders in both the civilian and military sectors. So that was a great opportunity. This past summer, I just graduated from Officer Candidate School, and what that is a 6-week high-intensity training program. In the video, I don't know if you saw the obstacles where the Marines were jumping over logs and over and under stuff. That's a lot of what we did at Marine Corps Officer Candidate School. And the purpose of that school is to test you mentally, morally, and physically with the overall purpose of evaluating your leadership potential. And that is a requirement for me to commission as a lieutenant. So that leads me to this year. I'm currently in an executive officer billet. As you grow in the ranks of midshipmen, you get placed with more responsibilities, you get more interaction with the staff, and a lot more leadership experience before I hit the fleet. And then in May of this year, 2015, I will graduate with a degree in computer science from USC, and I will commission as a second lieutenant in the military. We work very closely with our Navy counterparts, even though I'm in the Marine Corps. So this year, my class that graduates, some of us will be going to aviation school. Some of them will be preparing for different ships or submarines that they're going to be on. Personally, I'm going to be going to Virginia, and it's there where I'll find out what my job in the Marine Corps is going to be. But I'm really looking forward to it, and it's been a great opportunity to be a part of this, and it's really a great organization at USC. So I know that was a very brief overview. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask me when this is over. I'd be happy to talk to you. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Marina. We are honored to host a number of special guests today. From ROTC, may I introduce United States Navy Commander Julito Antolin. Would you like to stand? U.S. Air Force Lieutenant Colonel Gia P. Simmons, unfortunately, is unable to be here today. But I want to tell you something interesting about her. Lieutenant Colonel Simmons is the first woman to serve as a commanding officer of an ROTC unit at USC. I know. USC Army Lieutenant Colonel Justin M. Chesham. Staff Sergeant Ismael Ordaz, United States Marine Corps. And Virginia and I thank Staff Sergeant Ordaz from the bottoms of our hearts, because he has really helped us orchestrate this day, so thank you. We have Air Force Technical Sergeant Georgina M. Bulmer. Army Master Sergeant David L. Phillips. And our color guard, Midshipman Osterman. Midshipman Matheny. Midshipman Gar. Midshipman Steele. And Midshipman Ekstrom. Thank you very much. And I know some of you know this, but did you know that Town and Gown has its own midshipman? I bet you didn't know this. Midshipman Park Eddy. Grandson of Town and Gown member Janet Eddy. From Saul Price School of Public Policy, we welcome Associate Dean Regina Nordahl. Dean Nordahl is the fourth liaison between USC and ROTC since its inception in 1940, and all those liaisons have been women. And we have our dear friend to Town and Gown, Professor Earl Suthers. And from the Schwarzenegger team, our guest speaker today, Bonnie Reiss. Marcia Lansdowne, and Nebus Emily Burley, who is the daughter of Town and Gown member Jill Burley. It is my very, very great pleasure to tell you about our speaker. And if anyone is going to address the elections, this person is the one to do it. She has a lifelong career in the political arena. She has had hands-on experience with both national and statewide campaigns on both sides of the aisle. She served in Ted Kennedy's 1980 presidential campaign team and is a floor manager at the Democratic National Convention in New York City in 1980. She also served as a senior advisor to Governor Schwarzenegger's recall campaign and his re-election campaign, and senior advisor to 4 statewide ballot initiatives. Her career is nothing short of amazing. She has worked in the public sector, for U.S. senators and presidents. She has founded and served as CEO for 3 national nonprofit organizations. She is a highly respected entertainment attorney. At the state level, she served as senior advisor to Governor Schwarzenegger, served on the California State Board of Education, and then stepped in to serve as California Secretary of Education for the final year of Governor Schwarzenegger's term in office. Currently, she sits on boards of the California Board of Regents and the University of Miami President's Circle. And again, if anyone is prepared to present reflections on the elections, it is our speaker, Bonnie Reiss, from the Schwarzenegger Institute.
Thank you, Kathy. First, I have to say, like I said to my table when she talked about a lifetime in politics, I said, please don't hold that against me. I want to thank Kathy and Virginia and Jane and the board of Town and Gown and the staff of Town and Gown and all the members of Town and Gown. It is such a great honor you give me by having me here today. I love this organization. You know, you guys, in raising money to give out scholarships to worthy young people so that they can get a world-class education, it changes lives and it makes dreams possible. And while there may be other causes as important, nothing is more important than that. So bravo to all of you. And the other great exciting thing is to be here on Election Day. I wake up so excited on that. I mean, I'm a combination, as you can tell from my accent, I grew up in New York. So part of me is, you know, is like a tough cynic, but part of me, like as Mr. Smith goes to Washington, I get teary-eyed over all this stuff. And to give you some sense of how I view today and why it's so important is every morning when I wake up, I do a prayer of gratitude. And I give my gratitude list. I feel that really sets me up in the right frame of mind and heart for the day. And of course, my first gratitude list is thank you for letting me wake up to enjoy another day. You know, and then of course it's the, you know, the gratitude for the love of my family and friends, gratitude for a great job and all of that. And I always add, always on my gratitude list is gratitude to be living in the United States of America. Because, you know, and part of, you know, being in this great country is recognizing that we can always do better and we fight for the things that we feel can be better. But it's still the greatest nation in the land with the greatest opportunities that no other place can you be born of any race, religion, financial situation, wherever you are, and have the possibility for all things. You know, again, it's why I think what you do with scholarships is so important because you help make that possibility a reality. You know, so it's truly remarkable, and part of that means that we have, it's both a privilege and responsibility to be a good citizen. And part of that privilege and responsibility is voting. And I get that I'm as frustrated as most Americans with gridlock in Washington and disappointed in so many of the people that run to serve us and how they serve or don't serve us well. But that doesn't mean that doesn't mean we can give up our privilege and our responsibility to vote and to let our voice be heard and to be educated citizens. And for those that think, you know, that you hear some people out there go, well, does our vote really matter? Let me remind us once again of the Gore-Bush election that by the hanging Chad in Florida and the Supreme Court decision that ended up deciding a presidential election. And there's not an election in America where there's not a Senate race, a state assembly race, a school board race, a city council race that sometimes doesn't come down to a few votes. And there's not a single one of those races, not a city council, not a school board, that doesn't matter to us, that doesn't make a difference in our community. So that's why that's also very, very important to me. So to be here on Election Day with Town and Gown at USC, thank you. What a blessing, right? And how blessed we all are. So it's pretty amazing. And unfortunately, we do know that too many people in this nation kind of grown to take our democracy a little bit for granted. I'm so glad Town and Gown started off with the color guard and the ROTC video and Kathy acknowledging the men and women that put their lives on the line to serve our nation for all of us. Because that puts some perspective on it. But when you're on a day, election day like today, where they're expecting record low turnouts across the nation and record low turnouts in this state, it's disappointing, right? When we remember, it wasn't long ago, I mean, forget what goes on in other countries, it wasn't long ago in this country. I mean, forget the men and women that have lost their lives or lost limbs, etc., on battlegrounds to protect us and to fight for our freedom and for allies and what's important to us and our values. But within our own nation, it wasn't all that long ago that black people and women couldn't even have the right to vote. And the fight that went on back then to get us all the right to vote. So I just wanted to start off by acknowledging that when you all go home tonight and you're watching the election results and they're talking about record low turnouts, it's so important for all of us not just to vote, but to encourage other people. And when we're with friends and they talk about what difference does it make, to tell them the difference it makes so that we can encourage them. Because, you know, even if you vote and you get one or two other people that maybe weren't thinking to vote, you've made a difference. So that's important. So in my limited time, listen, we could spend the whole time just analyzing one race, one ballot initiative, one campaign issue like campaign finance. But I'm going to just try to touch some of the big things that I feel would be of interest to all of you on this election day, because we have obviously election in California with people running for office. Of course, it's not going to be much of a contest with governor, lieutenant governor, and some of the races. We've got tight races with the superintendent of public instruction. We've got a tight race with LA County Supervisor Sheila Kuehl and Bobby Shriver. And we've got some ballot initiatives, Prop 1, Prop 2, Prop 45 through 48. Through 48. Right, exactly. See, some people have voted and checked their sample ballot. But I would just set some perspective on some of the issues that I think are going to be that are and will continue to be important for informed citizens of our nation to continue to have public debate over that's impacting democracy. And one is, of course, the cost of elections and money's influence on politics. Just 8 years ago, a Senate candidate, an average cost of that was spent for a Senate race was $5 million. 8 years later, $10 million. The aggregate amount of money spent on national elections by candidates 8 years ago, $1.5 billion. The aggregate amount of money spent this year, over $4 billion. Now let's talk money not spent by candidates, but independent expenditures. 8 years ago, and this may be the most alarming and significant fact. 8 years ago, $15 million. And what an independent expenditure is that's the amount of money that is spent by individuals that supposedly are not connected to a candidate or a candidate committee. So they're doing it on their own. That was $15 million. This year, $1 billion. Now, that was influenced largely by an important Supreme Court decision you probably all heard about, controversial Supreme Court decision, the Citizens United versus FEC case. And that case was about looking at whether it was okay, the current law limited corporations couldn't spend money because up until then, political First Amendment rights weren't really viewed as important to corporations in our political area versus the influence they could have. So corporations were not able to give money on about campaigns and spend money on independent expenditures to influence elections. The Supreme Court in a 5-4 decision said that their First Amendment rights prevail, they can. And that, of course, is what you hear about, whether it's on the Steyer end or Bloomberg, or on, more on the left-leaning, or the Koch brothers you hear about more right-leaning. That's allowed really super wealthy people to focus a lot of money on influencing elections. So when you listen to radio ads, sometimes you're watching some of the TV ads. If it says the committee that loves America, or it always has names like that. Those are independent expenditures that if you go to the FEC, because the Supreme Court still upheld in that same Citizens United opinion, the right that you have to disclose who is the People That Love America committee, so that the voters can, at least if they research, can make a bit of a more informed decision. And just to say why I raise this in terms of what impact does this have, is a few months ago, Princeton released a study on this impact on democracy, and they concluded, and of course there's a lot of debate over this, but they concluded that America is not a true democracy anymore as a result of all this, but more of an oligarchy with a handful of truly wealthy, powerful people influencing politics and elections and therefore public policy. That could be debated, but one has to wonder when we're seeing all these ads, you could say, well, I'm still voting, but then you have to say, well, especially in a state like California, which is so large geographically, that so many ads are spent, right? So in California, when I talked about the average cost of a Senate election went from $5 million to $10 million, in California it's $30 million, because it's such a vast geographic area. Like, when we were doing Arnold's governor's campaign, you're running throughout the state. So you have to buy airtime in all the media markets throughout the state of California, and that's largely where a lot of the costs come in. Radio time, direct mail, robocalls, all of that. And of course now, to try to connect with young voters is all the social media strategy. But still, the largest cost, for the most part, other than staff and such, is buying of airtime. And so when we say, well, it's costing them $10 million, where are they getting it? They're getting it $1,000, they're getting it from, mom and pop and low donors, but mostly they're holding one after another $1,000 lunches, $1,000 dinners, take a photo with me for $2,000. And Ronald Reagan had a great saying that, when asked, are you being influenced, aren't they buying you? He goes, they're buying into my philosophy. So, and to some degree it's true with some more honorable political leaders, but with others, not so much. But also, even with those that are honorable, what it absolutely buys you is access. So if you're wealthy and you're hosting a $1,000 plate dinner at your home and you're David Geffen or you're whomever you are and you're hosting these events for a senator, and they all come to California because we've got a lot of money. They come all over the country. Like you can be running in North Carolina and you're going to go to have a fundraiser in Chicago and a fundraiser in New York and a fundraiser in LA and a fundraiser in San Francisco, and you're going to find a super wealthy person that's of your party that believes in you that'll hold a big event. Well, if they're doing that, maybe you can't tell that person when they're senator how to vote, but you certainly can get a meeting with them. So access in itself has some influence. So I raise that because we all know that that's an important issue. Now, it's not an issue because of the current makeup of the Supreme Court that's going to be able to change in the foreseeable future, because the Supreme Court has now equated First Amendment rights with the ability to spend money, including corporations' ability to spend money, and especially with the independent expenditures. Because even though you're not coordinating, the theory there was that, okay, well, if you're not coordinating with a candidate, then you're really not directly influencing them. So we can't curtail your First Amendment right to express your views on something. But anyone that's logical also knows that if I'm a billionaire on the left or I'm a billionaire on the right, and I want to pick a handful of candidates, I know what their talking points are. So I don't have to coordinate with them to actually, run a campaign that's going to benefit them. And unfortunately, they also run with all that money. They're the ones that'll do a lot of the negatives. This way, the candidate, Democrat or Republican, could say, I'm not attacking my opponent, but the independent expenditure group can run all the negative ads about your opponent. And while we say it doesn't work, while we say we don't like negative ads, they work. And, and it depends on the negative ad. If you go too far and it looks like you're, making it sexist or it's racist, that'll backfire. But, I'm just looking right now at in LA County, because we have Sheila Kuehl and Bobby Shriver, two Democrats running against each other for Zev's seat. And this last week, both of them, it's only negative ads you're seeing. You're seeing Sheila Kuehl's ad showing how Bobby Shriver missed 5 out of 20, like only 1 out of 5 city council meetings. He was on Santa Monica City Council. Was he there voting? And they list all the important votes he missed. Well, that's a negative ad. Some could say if it's negative about your resume and your track record, maybe that's legitimate. And the Sheila Kuehl, the ad that Bobby's running that's negative about Sheila Kuehl, talks about while she was in the legislature, The state deficit went, tripled, and and unemployment went up, and that's negative, right? But some say it's fair, and they have impact. So I just wanted to lay that out, because while the Supreme Court is still constituted the way it is, and Supreme Court law is pretty firm, even though it's just 5-4, still, there's not going to be a way to limit those kinds of expenditures by either candidates or by corporations or individuals, through both independent expenditures and through hosting fundraisers for the candidate themselves. And that's having an impact. It will continue to have an impact, and it's certainly worth informed citizens continuing to pay attention to and see what goes on with that. Now, the big news today, nationwide, that everyone's looking at, is the possibility that the U.S. Senate can get a majority. If they just need 6 to pick up 6 seats, 6 states. Well, it's not just, that's a big pickup, but the odds favor them because of the seats that are open and the makeup of those states to have a majority be Republican, which could be a dramatic impact. We'll see how that plays out, because if they do, it means that the Republicans then will control both the U.S. Senate and the House of Representatives. And so tonight you're going to see they're focusing on like 5-6 key states that the national political consultants are looking at to see which way it goes. And I thought it would be both interesting and a good way to discuss some of the big issues that are being discussed. So I picked 3 states, and I picked 1 30-second ad from each of from the 2 major candidates there to show, and by way of showing it will be an example of what are the themes, how are people running their campaigns. The 3 states I picked for today are Kentucky, Kansas, and Iowa. Now, Kentucky, because Mitch McConnell, who's the incumbent Republican, if the Senate goes Republican and he gets reelected, he will be the majority leader. Also, as of a week ago, he was running his opponent, Allison Grimes, who's running against Democrat running against him, they were running pretty even. I'll explain after you see the ads why he's now running like 5, 6, 7 points ahead. But also keep in mind, the big picture is there's one message for most Republicans running, and that is against their opponent. Don't vote for them. It's like voting for Barack Obama, because everyone knows he's very unpopular. The big message from most Democrats running is, I'm not Barack Obama. And here's why. Here's why I'll support you. The other thing is, the only thing as unpopular as Barack Obama is the Congress. So if you're running against an incumbent, the other tactic is to try to make them seem how out of touch with we Iowans and we North Carolinians, and how out of touch that incumbent really is with we people here, right? So while those are the overall messages within that context, all politics is local. So their messages are trying to appeal to their people in a way that relates to their people. So we're going to start with Kentucky, and we're going to see those 2, one spot from Allison Grimes and McConnell.
Mitch McConnell wants you to think I'm Barack Obama. Mitch is the same guy who thought Duke basketball players were UK, or who's attacking me on coal after doing next to nothing while we've lost thousands of coal jobs. He even said it's not his job to bring jobs to Kentucky.
I'm not Barack Obama. I disagree with him on guns, coal, and the EPA. And Mitch, that's not how you hold a gun. I'm Allison Lundergan Grimes, and I approve this message.
To say who she's voted for president is now the non-answer heard around the country.
Did you vote for President Obama, 2008, 2012?
This election...
She refused to answer.
Dodging whether she voted.
A tough vote on anything? Is she ever going to answer a tough question on anything?
So you're not going to answer.
I'm Mitch McConnell, and I approve this message.
I think she disqualified herself.
All right, so obviously there, right, she's showing she's not only not Barack Obama, I'm not like what you don't like about Democrats. I like guns, I like coal, and I don't like the EPA. And it was working, She was actually running ahead of Mitch McConnell. And again, remember, there's as unpopular as Obama is, she's showing I'm not, and here's why, I'm like you. And he's an incumbent, and we don't like Congress right now very much. But then what happened is, in an ad, well, if you're running all this ad campaign that you're not Barack Obama, it's a likely question that a press person locally is going to ask you, did you vote for him, right? But the fact that she didn't answer and then kept getting asked it and then made it like, well, it should be private what we do. People smell that, right? And they knew that this was either cowardly or lying or, and there could have been 100 positive ways to answer that without feeling like you're attached to yeah, I voted for him. I thought, like many Americans did, like the majority of Americans did, he was going to be better than Mitt Romney, but that doesn't mean I'm going to vote with him on a lot of these issues. I'm going to vote with but instead she chose not to answer, and they kept coming back and back at her. And Mitch's campaign picked up on this and ran this, and now he's running ahead. So that was a dramatic turn there. So, because it's interesting, a part of what I'm bringing out here is you want to be local, and while issues are important, within the context of no one likes Obama, no one really likes Congress, no one likes the incumbents, so within the context of that, ultimately, who the person is, and do you trust them, and do you feel that they'll speak to you with your values, and values are more than where you stand on issues, very often ends up being the deciding factor in many of these elections, and we all know that ourselves, right? So the next race I thought was going to be interesting to look at is Iowa. And again, they're the two candidates running for Senate are running for Tom Harkin, the Democrat. He's retired. So a seat opening came there. And that's Joni Ernst, a Republican woman, versus Bruce Braley, a Democrat man. And I won't even preface it. You'll just watch the ads and we'll talk about it afterwards.
I'm Joni Ernst. I grew up castrating hogs on an Iowa farm. So when I get to Washington, I'll know how to cut pork.
Joni Ernst, mother, soldier, conservative.
My parents taught us to live within our means. It's time to force Washington to do the same. To cut wasteful spending, repeal Obamacare, and balance the budget. I'm Joni Ernst, and I approve this message because Washington's full of big spenders. Let's make them squeal.
That whole period right after my father died was the toughest period of my life.
Just the suddenness of his dad's death was really hard on him.
It was my mom who finally kicked me out of her house and told me that the worst thing I could do to honor my father's memory was to give up on my dreams.
I thought his place was to be in law school. Bruce tries to think what is best for the most people. He loves serving the people of Iowa.
I'm Bruce Braley, and I approve this message.
All right, so here you see Joni running in Iowa. So she wants to, how do you make people, first of all, and as a woman candidate in Iowa, she wants to make people feel she's tough. Allison Grimes thought the same thing with the gun, right? So women want to show, I'm smart, I'm tough, and I'm one of you, right? So she's one of them because she grew up on castrating hogs. And she'll castrate them hogs in Washington, so let's send me. Playing on all the things we know. They don't like Congress. Okay, Joni, you go, right? And Bruce, because he's now running against a woman, and he's as a white guy, he's being told by his advisors, you got to speak to the women of Iowa because you're running against a woman. What better way to do that? Let's use mom, right? So he's got mom there doing that. Now, what's interesting is that within that, you're not really seeing a lot of in-deep policy issues being discussed, right? Right? And this is where most of that $10 million is being spent on messages like this. Now, they were running dead even. And here's where it's so interesting what happens. And again, it's less about an issue and more about, are you one of us? Can we trust you? What kind of person are you? Remember how in the Romney-Obama campaign, someone with their handheld phone at a fundraiser got Romney talking about how most people are in the government, get paid and they don't like to work and everything. And that made it around. And for 2 weeks, he's finding himself defensive on that issue. So at a Braley fundraiser, he was talking about their retiring Senator Grassley, a Republican, and he was criticizing him as being a farmer and not a lawyer. Oh, in Iowa? So even though Joni Ernst is actually, on many of her positions are Tea Party extreme, so she's not a moderate Republican. So Bruce was running ahead for Tom Harkin, a Democrat seat in Iowa that went for Obama, right? But when Iowans saw that video of him like being too elitist and demeaning farmers? You know, right, exactly. So the polls are turning there. You'll watch that one tonight. But that slip up caught on camera could well get Joni Ernst elected tonight. And the final one we're looking at is Kansas. And I'm only showing one ad from Kansas because there, an independent candidate won to run in the general election against the incumbent Republican, Greg Orman. And that's another key seat because he's running against Pat Robertson, a long-term senior Republican in the Senate. So if Orman, an independent, wins that seat, that's taking away from a Republican. So that's in the numbers game. But what's also interesting is a friend of mine who, when you're in this for a lot of years, you know people all over. And I heard yesterday how Mitch McConnell has actually called Lamar Alexander, who's a friend. He's a good man, Lamar. And he has Lamar being the Republican Senate liaison to Greg Orman, anticipating if Greg Orman wins, the Republicans want to convince him to caucus with the Republican Party. Because even if the Republican, it's a numbers game. Are they going to win? If they win, are they going to have 51, 50, 52? So I just thought it would be worth watching the Greg Orman spot.
If we want to get things done in America, we need to have true independence in Washington. People who are willing to stand up for the best idea, regardless of what party it comes from. Our system's broken. Problems that we have as a country aren't getting solved. I'm a businessman who solves problems every day. I believe that we can become the place you go to start a business, that we can become the innovation nation, but we can't do that with the current leadership we have. I'm Greg Orman, and I approve this message.
And I wanted this to be the last one because polls, NBC and other polls that were released last week that are polling people in America about what the most important issues are, they feel, are, number one, over jobs, over economic, over healthcare, et cetera, is frustration with gridlock in Congress, and a Congress that doesn't seem to be working for the people. He's playing on that, and he's running ahead. So we'll see how that comes down tonight, but he could well win based on his independence and speaking to the frustration that the voters have with that. And I also want to end with that because that brings up another important point within politics, and that's political reform. And we're in a state, California, that when Arnold was governor, he led a bipartisan coalition of organizations that wanted to figure out how can we pass some reforms that would make people in Sacramento more accountable to the people of California. And one was to end gerrymandering, where districts are drawn by the politicians themselves to protect their seat and so that it's less competitive. And the other was open primary, which is believed that if you have an open primary instead of if you have two-party primaries, it's believed that inherent in that system is the Republican primary will elect someone more to the, elect you someone more to the right, and the Democratic primary puts someone more to the left. So you have someone a little more to the left running against someone a little more to the right, then reflects more centrist views. So an open primary, and it also excludes independents because they can't vote in most two-party primaries, and more Americans are registering independent. So an open primary, which we passed in California, says everyone can vote in the primary for all the candidates, and the top two vote getters, whether that's one's a Republican, one's a Democrat, two are Democrats, two are Republicans, doesn't matter. The top two vote getters go to the general election together. So at the Schwarzenegger Institute, because it passed, the people of California overwhelmingly supported that. So the Schwarzenegger Institute last year, when we hosted a symposium on government and leadership and how government can be more accountable to the people, we went to a top USC political science researcher, and we commissioned research on, well, is the impact, now that we've had some elections in California, is the impact what the voters hoped? Is it creating a less polarized, more moderate legislature? And in fact, it significantly showed that it was, because when you have like two Democrats, even though we're still a heavily Democratic state, when you have two Democrats running against each other, then the more moderate Democrat, the Chamber of Commerce is looking to support, and and other constituencies are looking to support that person. So it's interesting because it leads to more moderate candidates, and that's what the initial study is showing that while U.S. Congress, the polarization rates were going up and less moderation. In California, the polarization rates were going down with more moderates representing us. So we're going to continue to look at that, and that's another issue I just wanted to raise and bring up. Obviously, you can see my passion for this. I can go on and on. This is all fascinating. But in the remaining time we have, because of the incredible group of people that are here, I wanted not just to open it up for questions. You all have ideas and thoughts and opinions and stories, so feel free to either get up and speak some point you feel is important about the election or politics in America or whatever dealing with this topic, or ask a question. So yes, and so if you stand up and state your name, please.
Hi, Linda Sweat. Thank you for speaking. It's very informative. So the statistics show that the person who spends the most money wins. Is that correct?
No, it's not. I was just giving what average amount of money spent. You need to have a certain threshold of money to be able to get your name recognition out and your message out and rebut any negatives coming against you. But we've seen in California, whether it's Meg Whitman or other billionaire people that have run, that once you get beyond, it's like, if you need to have, like, let's say in California, 25 million. But it doesn't matter if you spend 60 million. You could be beaten by someone that spends 25 million.
Okay, so my point is there a way to put a cap on how much, like if you're running for president, you can spend this much in your campaign? So it evens out.
Well, the U.S. Supreme Court said no, because if you can't tell an American you can't spend money to get your message out. That's your First Amendment right. However, what they tried to do is, if you want to be eligible to public financing, and you're a presidential candidate, you could check off the box, and to do that, you have to agree to a limit, right? It used to be that the Democrats loved that, and the Republicans were able to raise more money. That stopped when Obama ran, because he was raising more money than he could raise. He easily competed with Romney on the raising of the money, so he didn't opt for public financing or the cap. Your name, please. Florence Wright. The question is, how does Brown, formerly from Massachusetts, is currently running in New Hampshire and doing well? How is he able to do that? Well, that's just New Hampshire rules for residency that he managed to figure out how to meet to run. The interesting thing is, how do you do well when you're a carpetbagger? You know, there they feel that his opponent's campaign was just, they feel has just been, that's a tight race to watch tonight. But that's a race that more's been bungled by his opponent than it has been done well by him. But that's interesting, right? Yes. Your name? Candy Duncan. The question is, how do you identify who's contributing to the campaign or who's doing the independent expenditure? Which is the question? Right. Well, like where it says, this ad was approved, right? I approve, I'm Joni Ernst and I approve this ad, right? The Americans That Love America Committee. Well, that you have to go, and even to know who are the big contributors to Jerry Brown, Joni Ernst, Bruce Braley, how do you know who their contributors are, right? Or who are the Americans That Love America Committee? Yeah, that's a little research, but now with the internet, it's a little easier. You go to the Federal Election Commission, they all have to file reports, and you could see who their candidates have to file reports on who their contributors are, and independent expenditures have to file who Americans That Love America are. Where do we find that? Go to online to the Federal Election Commission website, or if you want to know in the state, like let's say it's in California, well, who are the big backers? I mean, we see all these ads, Prop 45 and 46, insurance company, health insurance companies are spending $40 million to defeat it. How can that be good? In California, or any state, if you want to know state who's spending it, you go to the Secretary of State's website, and you can put in the search what you're looking, backer, financial donors to whatever, and it'll come up. Yes. Bobby Albanese, they're not all hearing you, so let me just summarize. She's available to talk to later. She volunteered with the Voter Integrity Project. They're a corporation, but that's nonpartisan, and they train people to be poll observers to make sure that there's no violations going on. And in going to observe 2 polling places, was appalled at the number of violations of people that were registered, were there checking people in to vote. So, Voter Integrity Project, she'd love you to chat with her about it. It's a good way to volunteer to make sure that our polling has integrity, our voting has integrity. Thank you very, very much. Go vote.
Thank you. All righty, and I invite our President Jane Ben-Susan back to the podium, and thank you, Bonnie, so much. I am going to be watching those returns, especially in Iowa. Can't wait.
Well, I'm totally inspired and a little bit better educated, so I hope you feel the same way. And Bonnie, thank you so much. It's almost time to go, but not quite. We have the Schwarzenegger Institute right here on campus next door, and so you can go online and keep up with what Bonnie is doing and what else is happening there, and it's a great resource for us. I'm just going to really quickly, because this is the year of our members, and every year should be, and I'm not having our vice presidents come up, but I want our new members to come up. So I'm going to have them come up right here. Hold your applause till they're all up here. Will Kathy Bledsoe, quickly, Kelly Busia, Lisa Lee, Sharon Schmidt, stand right here. Cheryl Schwartz. You're going to not know which is which. Will have to be a test later. Martha Tapias Mansfield. And Queso. Okay, these are our new members who were approved this month. Let's give them a round of applause and welcome. And Rosalie Stewart, wonderful. And if you'll step over there, then Deidre, would you please take a picture in a few minutes? Okay. We had our orientation of new members today, and it was just great. So I can't close the program without one more introduction, and that would be our friend, Steve Yamaguchi. Please stand up and smile. Steve is the Senior General Counsel for the university and our partner. Last time I neglected to remind you that the centerpieces are there for you to take for a donation in the envelope. And so this time they were patriotic and fall. They're $15, and if you don't like the patriotism after Election Day, you can take that off and have a wonderful fall arrangement. And back here we have bags, so you can put them in bags on the back corner table. Now, we received close to 100 RSVPs after the end of the RSVP date for this lunch. Guess who is getting gray hair? Me. Okay. So we will be sending out the invitations for the holiday party, which will be December 2nd, first Tuesday. It'll come around fast. They will go out right away, maybe in 2 or 3 days. When you get them, do not delay. Send them right in. The RSVP date is November 21st. And, you know, we have Thanksgiving and things that we have to do in there, so we do not want to be doing reservations. So I urge you all to get them in. I'll close, I think, by wishing you all a wonderful, wonderful Thanksgiving. We have much to be grateful for, all of our friendship and the wonderful things that we do to help the university and the students. And now let's go shop a little bit more, okay? And I will see you at the polls. Fight on.